How did Egyptians move 2.5-ton blocks of stone across the desert to build the pyramids? The answer is right here, right now, on the Science Fair.
E=mc². That is the engine that lights up the stars. Energy turns into mass. E=mc². That is the secret of the stars. That is the secret of the stars. Now listen carefully.
Hello everybody, welcome to Science Fair. Physicists at the University of Amsterdam discovered recently that ancient Egyptians pulled these massive stones by using water. Yeah, I gave you the answer right away. This video is going to be quite short, but they did carry these 2.5-ton blocks through the desert using water. How is this possible, you say? I'm going to use an example with my poor drawing. Here's my terribly poor drawing. This is a 2.5-ton block, a stone that they would use to bring to the pyramids. They put these stones on sleds. And on these sleds, men would drag the blocks across the desert. But, as we know, if you go to a beach, when you build a sand castle, you don't build it entirely of dry sand. It makes your castle weak. So you add some water. But not too much, because if you add too much water, sand falls apart. The grains don't stick together. And water acts like a glue. So they had a man who would stand here, my lovely stick figures. A man would stand here with a bucket of water. Buckets, there'd be a bunch of them over here. And as you go through the desert, sand, if you're drag something on the beach, sand will build up in front of this. Lots of sand will just keep building up and eventually the sled won't be able to move. But when you walk on the beach, you notice that your feet drag through the sand. When you get closer to the water and you have that slightly wet sand, your feet don't sink, but they are able to slide across the surface more gradually. And doing this, the Egyptians were able to use less manpower because you have this guy dropping the exact amount of water needed to drag this stone across the desert. So doing this, there's actually a cave painting just like this, just with more detail. And they thought this man was performing Egyptologists believed that this man was performing a ritual, when in reality he was just another worker helping out. He was not a priest. Now we knew that you needed the exact amount of stiffness, because too much dry sand and it won't work, and too much wet sand won't work either. So you needed the right dampened sand in order to make this happen. So you know, when you drop water on sand, it acts like a glue between grains, holding them together like little bridges. So picture little grains of sand, and they don't hold together, and if you drag something across, all the sand builds up in front. But if you add a little bit of water, it creates these bridges in between the sand, and then you can glide over the sand more easily. You see this with those skim boards? I'm not positive, right? I'm not a surfer, but those like water boards, and I wouldn't say they're totally different things. Surfing, so I know surfers will get mad at me if I say. I believe it's like skimboarding or waterboarding. I don't know. Those people who run up along the wet sand and then they drop it down and you know what I'm talking about. You guys know what I'm talking about. Kind of like that. They glide across that sand until they hit the water. And if the sand is too wet, they sink. They do not make it to the water. As for my research, like usual, I post down in the bottom the links to where I got my information. I did not say how they brought the stones up to the top of the pyramid. I just explained simply how they dragged these stones across the desert. So that's another question that needs to be answered. How did they carry them up to the top of the pyramid? Maybe you'll find out in a later episode, but right now, that's all I have to say. They used water to drag these stones, creating cross bridges in between the grains of sand. The perfect amount of water. The ancient Egyptians, people who are way older than us with no technology, figured out how to drag 2.5-ton stone blocks across a desert. Pyramids. Well guys, thank you for watching. I know it was kind of short, it wasn't too long, but the answer wasn't really an extensive answer, and there was no reason to go into more detail. It's pretty simple. Water creates grains, creates bridges between the grains of sand. And it's as simple as that. For now, subscribe and like the video, and I will be posting more. I still have a trilogy to finish on stress, and there's a lot more interesting things that have been happening in science. And if there's anything you would like me to talk about or explain more, maybe give some more examples, also comment down there and let me know what I can do. As for now, that's it, and I'll see you next time on the Science Fair.